On Valentine's Day in the year 2000, 9-year-old Asha Degree disappeared before dawn, apparently freely leaving the Shelby, North Carolina home she shared with her brother O'Brien and parents Aquila and Harold. Numerous searches and eyewitness reports yielded few results on the girl's whereabouts, and she has never been found dead or alive. In the 20 years since that day, her family has held on hope that she's out there somewhere. Theories online abound about what happened to Asha, including the thinking that the smart and well-loved elementary schooler was involved with a fraudulent pen pal. In this episode of It's a Mystery, we'll discuss the disappearance of Asha Degree. In 2000, Shelby, North Carolina had a population just under 20,000 and was 41% black. It's a small town outside of Charlotte where many people know each other, where the population is highly religious and many enjoy affordable living. Aquila and Harold Degree were hardworking parents who would marry back on Valentine's Day 1988. Asha was born 2 years later and raised in a happy home. She attended Falston Elementary School, where she was noted for being very smart, good at math and science, and loved reading and writing. Known to be a daddy's girl, Harold recalled that Asha wanted to grow up to be an illustrator. Asha and O'Brien were latchkey kids who were expected to be done with their homework before their parents arrived home from work in the evenings. Asha and the family were faithful churchgoers every Sunday. So let's talk about the days before Asha went missing. On Saturday, February 12th, Asha and her basketball team experienced their first loss, and the girls took it really hard, especially Asha. She had fouled out during the game and insisted that the refs had cheated. By the time the family went home that night, Asha was considered to be back to her normal, happy self, though she did keep mentioning the basketball game. She also attended a sleepover at her cousin's house. On Sunday, February 13th, the family went to Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church before going to have lunch at an aunt's house. Again, Aquila and Harold insist that the 9-year-old was happy and seemed to be past the basketball game. They head home. Asha decides to go to sleep early around 6:30 p.m. until she's awoken by a thunderstorm around 8:30 p.m. She goes into the living room to watch TV with the family. At 9 p.m., there's a power outage from a nearby car accident. By 12:30 a.m., the power is restored, and a nightgown-clad Asha is reported seen by her father in her bed. O'Brien, who Asha shared her room with, is also in his bed. He later thinks he hears her tossing and turning in bed, thinking nothing of it. Around 4 a.m., 2 truckers reported seeing a black female child walking along NC 18, about a mile from the Degree home during a violent storm. One of the drivers turned his vehicle around and approached the child, who then darted into the woods. Between 5:45 and 6:15 a.m., reports are conflicting. Aquila finds Asha missing. By 7:40 a.m., tracking dogs are dispatched. Unfortunately, heavy rainfall in the hours of Asha's disappearance rendered the dogs useless. Friends, neighbors, and police comb the area for Asha, finding nothing. On February 15th, items belonging to Asha, a Mickey Mouse hairbow, candy wrappers, a young girl's photo, a pen, and pencil, are found in a chicken shed about 600 feet away from the area where she was seen by truckers. On February 16th, Aquila noticed that Asha's room was missing her favorite clothes, indicating that she had packed them before leaving home. On February 20th, investigators stopped their ground search for Asha. They turned their investigation to witnesses, and on February 21st spent 3 hours stopping motorists along the NC 18, hoping someone saw Asha. On March 14th, Aquila and Harold Degree appeared on America's Most Wanted to bring awareness to Asha. A week later, they erect a billboard where Asha was last seen alive, running into the woods. So for a while, there are no new breaks in the case until August 3rd, 2001, 2 days before what would be Asha's 11th birthday. The day before, a contractor working at a site about 26 miles from Asha's home in nearby Burke County finds a mysterious parcel wrapped in 2 trash bags. He finds a paper with Asha's name on it and some other items. Getting an eerie feeling that he saw the name before, he scribbles the name down and leaves the bag. When he tells his wife later about what he found, she tells him to call police. It was revealed much later that 2 of the items in the the bag were a brand new New Kids on the Block t-shirt and a Dr. Seuss book checked out from her school library. Asha's parents did not recognize the t-shirt. Police conducted a 3-mile-long, 400-foot-wide search around the site and found nothing. The book bag event was the last break in the case. Let's turn our attention to the theories and suspects. From the beginning, the most baffling aspect of the case is why Asha left her home and how she did so silently without being detected. In 1999, it was reported that children under 13 were approximately 18% of the nation's runaways, though most returned home shortly after leaving. Could Asha have been one of these youngsters? It's weird because Asha grew up in a happy home with loving parents. Though most people believe Asha left on her own accord, seeing as she packed her book bag with her favorite items and showed odd behavior in the days before her disappearance. Asha's parents theorized that maybe she left because she was still upset about February 12th's basketball game loss. They said she was the kind of girl who blamed herself for the team's loss and wondered if she hatched some sort of elaborate plan to redeem herself, and it involved leaving her family in the early morning of her parents' anniversary. But her parents also said Asha was scared of storms and dogs, making her nighttime journeys seem even stranger. Her parents also suggested that Asha may have been influenced by the book The Whipping Boy, which her class read a week before she disappeared. In the book, a young boy takes whippings, aka punishments, for a young prince. The two run away from the kingdom in the dead of night and have an adventure before returning. With either theory, Asha's parents seem to agree that Asha left the home willingly. Friends of Asha who were interviewed reported that she had shown them a few dollars in her wallet on February 10th, and it's unknown where the money came from. For some, this lends to the runaway theory. If the Degrees had a computer in their home, I would have thought perhaps she was lured away from home by an online predator, but the family didn't have a computer. One theory, which was quickly debunked, was made by a former classmate of Aquila, Baron Ramsey. While serving time in a Mecklenburg County jail, he claimed he and a man were returning from Hickory, North Carolina to buy drugs when the man struck a young black girl with the car. Ramsey claimed they covered up the crime and wanted to exchange what he knew for a deal. He was lying, but the theory that Asha was hit by a motorist while walking and then disposed of still holds merit for some. However, it's my belief and most people's belief that while walking along the highway, Asha was likely kidnapped. Upon reinvestigation in 2016, the FBI announced that a witness saw Asha get into the back of a green 70s-style car. Another more obscure theory points to the photo found among Asha's belongings in the chicken shed. Asha's family nor her school recognized the girl in the photo, and the Charlotte Observer ran a piece asking the public about the identity of the girl, which has never come forth. The obscure theory poses that Asha was in a pen pal correspondence with the girl in the photo, and that an adult was manipulating/grooming her to run away and meet her friend. When you consider how hard it would be for a child to hide postal correspondence from two watchful parents and the months that it would take to establish trust and successfully groom said child, the theory seems very unlikely. The fact that the items found in the chicken shed were found is suspicious in itself. It could have been planted there, because wouldn't an abductor or killer truly hell-bent on going uncaught burn any evidence that could be burned? The items found were all flammable and easily disposable. The same goes for the carefully protected backpack, doubly wrapped in heavy-duty trash bags. Somebody wanted that to be found. If the killer or abductor wanted the backpack to truly be hidden, wouldn't he have burned it? The book bag could have been planted and expected to be found, especially if the perpetrator saw that the area that he wanted to plant it in was under construction. This leads me and other theorists to believe that such clues were false leads that probably hurt the investigation in the long run. So, if Asha indeed left her home of her own free will, who abducted her along her way to wherever she was going, and maybe even misled police in the months to follow? There have only been two suspects that seem to even remotely fit the crime. 43-year-old Danny Ray Johnson was arrested in 2003 for the rape and abduction of an 11-year-old in North Carolina. He left her naked and bound to a tree. Police were interested in connecting him to the Asha Degree case until they dug into his background. He had served time in West Virginia for larceny back in 1982 before being released for good behavior in 1985. The very next year, when he robbed a woman for $15, he was charged for sexual abuse, robbery with a deadly weapon, and assault. He was sent back to prison to serve 37 years, but was paroled for good behavior in 2002, meaning he was in prison when Asha went missing. Coincidentally, Danny's brother, Herbert, also a convicted rapist and self-proclaimed murderer, had been investigated shortly after Asha's backpack was found in 2001. However, he had a strong alibi, being locked up in a psychiatric ward at the time. The other suspect seems more convincing. The year is 1990. A 29-year-old man named Donald Preston Ferguson was out on a $400 bond from Spartanburg County for a 1989 rape charge. He is living in Greensboro, North Carolina. Sometimes he visits the home of a male friend who has a little sister named Shalonda Poole. July 1990, Shalonda Poole goes missing. Along with Shalonda's mother Marilyn, family, and neighbors, Donald Preston Ferguson searches for the missing 9-year-old. Her body is found behind Jones Elementary School the next day. A mentally disabled man named Melvin Bennett, who works at the UNCG cafeteria where Marilyn Poole is employed, is arrested for the murder. He confesses under intense pressure by the police, though it would take 2 years for him to be acquitted on the basis that DNA samples found on Shalonda were not a match to him. Meanwhile, Donald Preston Ferguson moves back to Spartanburg, where he pleads guilty to the 1989 rape, gets sentenced to prison, and is ultimately freed in 1997. On October 16, 1997, he and 3 family members are arrested for murdering their partially blind 76-year-old grandmother in Spartanburg. She was shot with her own gun, allegedly for drug money, by her son, daughter, and 2 grandsons, including Donald, who turned himself in to police for the crime. Ultimately, in April 1999, the charges were dropped due to weak evidence. It's terrifying to think about, but this man spent more than a decade doing who knows what before finally being linked to Shalonda Poole's murder and being convicted in 2014. So he was free at the time that Asha Degree went missing. Like Asha Degree, Shalonda went missing in the early morning between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. Like Asha, she also shared a room with her sibling, in Shalonda's case, a twin sister. The victim's race and the brutality of the crime, along with the North Carolina location, made investigators begin looking at ways to link Ferguson to Asha Degree. Theorists who believe this course of events point out that Ferguson may have gotten better at covering his tracks after murdering Shalonda and found a way to dispose of Asha's body so he could never officially be linked to her. Critics of this theory point out that because of the probability that Asha left her home alone, if she was groomed into meeting someone, people would have remembered the presence of Donald Ferguson, seeing as he needed to be in some sort of contact with Asha to groom her. Apart from school, basketball practice, and church, where could Asha have consistently bumped into Donald Preston Ferguson? This is perhaps why the investigation into Donald Preston led to a dead end. Or who knows, maybe they're sitting on that evidence now and they're just waiting and they're not going to say anything until later. But there is a combined $45,000 reward from the FBI and a Shelby area community group for information leading to the arrest of the person or people responsible for Asha Degree's disappearance. So far, no new good tips have been reported publicly in the 5 years that the FBI relaunched an investigation, except for the part about the green 70s muscle car with rusted wheel wells. Investigators have used age progression technology to show the public what Asha may look like now, if she's still alive. It's possibly a good sign that investigators released information about the contents of Asha's backpack, the Dr. Seuss book, and New Kids on the Block t-shirt her parents didn't recognize. Investigators claim the items to be crucial clues, but as I mentioned before, if the abductor protected these items and wanted them to be found, they might be red herrings. Ultimately, a happy and loving family was forever damaged by the abduction of 9-year-old Asha Degree. Aquila has voiced over the years that police would have done more to help her daughter if she was a white girl. It's hard not to feel her pain and the family's anguish. How and why does a little girl disappear without a trace? Her family still holds on to hope that she's alive somewhere, with Aquila saying earlier this year, "I wouldn't care what I missed. All I want to do is see her." She prays every night that the person responsible comes forward to clear a guilty conscience so she and her family can have closure. Until that happens, if it ever does, the case of Asha Degree remains a mystery.